How long can you hold your breath? 10 seconds? 20 seconds? A minute? Now imagine if you had to hold your breath for 5 seconds, but not just underwater, but everywhere. What if all the oxygen in the world disappeared for 5 seconds? What would happen to you, to the environment, and to everything else that depends on oxygen? You might think it's not a big deal, but you'd be wrong. In fact, you'd be dead wrong. In this video, we'll explore what would happen if the world lost oxygen for 5 seconds and why you should be glad that it won't. Oxygen is everywhere. We take it for granted, but we can't live without it. It is the most abundant element in the Earth's crust, and it makes up 2/3 of the mass of the human body. Oxygen is also involved in many processes that keep our planet alive, such as the ozone layer, the water cycle, and the carbon cycle. But what if, one day, all the oxygen in the world vanished for 5 seconds? How would that affect us and everything around us? Would we survive? Would anything change? Let's imagine this scenario and see what would happen. As soon as the oxygen disappears, we would notice some immediate effects. First of all, we would lose our hearing. That's because sound waves need a medium to travel through, and air is mostly composed of nitrogen and oxygen. Without oxygen, the air would become much thinner and less dense, and sound waves would not be able to propagate. We would be surrounded by silence. Secondly, we would feel a sudden drop in temperature. That's because oxygen is a major component of the greenhouse effect, which traps heat from the sun and keeps the Earth warm. Without oxygen, the greenhouse effect would be reduced by about 30, and the average global temperature would fall by about 15 degrees Celsius. We would feel a chill in the air. Thirdly, we would see some changes in the color of the sky and the water. That's because oxygen molecules scatter blue light from the sun, giving the sky its blue hue. Without oxygen, the sky would appear black or dark purple, as if it were nighttime. Similarly, water reflects the color of the sky, so without oxygen, the oceans, lakes, and rivers would look dark and murky. But these effects are relatively minor compared to what would happen next. Without oxygen, we would not be able to breathe. We can only survive for a few minutes without oxygen before our brain cells start to die. Without oxygen, we would lose consciousness within seconds and suffer brain damage or death within minutes. The same would happen to most animals that rely on oxygen for respiration. But not all living things need oxygen to survive. Some bacteria and other microorganisms can live in anaerobic conditions, meaning they do not require oxygen for their metabolism. These organisms would thrive in an oxygen-free world, and they would start to decompose any organic matter that they encounter. This means that our bodies, along with those of other animals and plants, would start to rot rapidly. Another consequence of oxygen loss is that combustion would stop. Oxygen is necessary for fire and explosions to occur, so without it, any flames or sparks would instantly go out. This means that any engines or machines that run on fuel or electricity would stop working. Cars would stall, planes would fall from the sky, power plants would shut down, and so on. Furthermore, without oxygen, many structures and materials would collapse or crumble. That's because oxygen forms bonds with other elements to create compounds that give strength and stability to things like concrete, steel, glass, plastic, and wood. Without oxygen, these compounds would break down into their constituent elements, and many buildings, bridges, monuments, and objects would fall apart. Finally, without oxygen, the Earth's magnetic field would weaken significantly. That's because oxygen is part of the iron-nickel alloy that makes up the Earth's core, which generates the magnetic field by spinning around. Without oxygen, the core would lose some of its mass and density, and its rotation speed would slow down. The magnetic field protects us from harmful cosmic rays and solar winds, which can damage our DNA and electronics. Without the magnetic field, we would be exposed to these dangers, and the atmosphere would start to erode. And that's what would happen if the world lost oxygen for 5 seconds. What do you think? Would you survive? What else do you think would happen? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, you might also like our other video, What If We Had Superpowers? In this video, we'll explore what would happen if humans could fly, teleport, read minds, and more. How would that change our lives, our society, and our world? Would it be awesome or awful? Find out by clicking on the link on the screen or in the description below.